So anyway, let's see what the messages for Libra are at this full moon lunar eclipse in Sagittarius. What wisdom, lessons, or messages does this full moon lunar eclipse have for Libra? That didn't really work very well. Let's try that again. Cards are a little bit sticky today. So first out is conjunctio, which is the geomantic figure for conjunction or union of opposites. So of course this is really appropriate, given that we are talking about a full moon where the sun is on one side of the horizon and the moon is on the other, and so a full moon in and of itself is about kind of trying to unite opposites, so seeing the two extremes as part of a pole, a continuum that isn't actually joined. So on some level, Libra, you are wanting more balance, you want to sort of restore more balance to your life, and it could also be kind of a symbol of reconciliation. It's about marriage, so that could be literal or it could be figurative. It could be a business partnership, for example, in the offing, or it's just sort of a joining together of opposite aspects of your psyche that perhaps need to sort of come together to work better, in more harmony. So here the sun represents your kind of conscious mind, your logical mind, the moon that represents your subconscious mind, so perhaps a need to sort of bring the two together so that left and right brain work together. Then your second geomantic figure is Acquisitio, which is Jupiter in Sagittarius. So this is fire energy. Here we have earth energy, this is fire energy. So this is really telling us that there's kind of enormous riches to be gained from kind of personal ties or personal realization. So it could be something literal. This is the house of family and home, for example, so it could literally be buying a house. It could also be an inheritance, because this is about family legacies, or it could simply be perhaps joining forces with a family member in order to purchase property, but there's some kind of gain coming from ancestral ties or your home at this particular full moon. Then we have Draconis. This is the dragon's head. So this is the north node, and of course at any eclipse the sun and the moon are generally crossing at the nodes, because the nodes represent where the paths of the sun and the moon kind of cross over. So this is kind of suggesting that when it comes to significant others, there's some kind of karmic lesson or kind of soul contract that's being highlighted, at this particular eclipse. And then we have Laetitia. So these are all really quite positive, cards. Caput Draconis is about new beginnings. Acquisitio is about gain, and it's often material gain. So we've got Jupiter in Sagittarius, and here we've got Jupiter in Pisces, which is its more kind of ephemeral or ethereal expression. So this is happiness, joy, and there's a suggestion that on some level you will be kind of feeling more settled in terms of your public domain. So in other words, the way that other people see you will be more contented, more joyful, just in a happier place. So it could be that on some level you're going to be pleased about some development to do with either your soul purpose, so this could tie into the soul contracts, or it could be something to do with career status, or as I say, your kind of public office. So that's another way that this could kind of work. But we need to find out more by casting the rest of the geomantic figures, so I'm just going to pause the video while I do that, and I'll be back with you shortly. Hi Libra, welcome back to your reading. So this is your finished and completed conversion sheet. So I've taken the four mothers and I've created the four daughters and the nieces, as well as the judges and the witnesses. You can download this conversion sheet from my website if you're interested in learning astrology. It kind of gives you step-by-step advice on how to actually make the conversion. So it's quite similar in a way to the I Ching, where you have to sort of like convert from one to the other. So just a heads up, I haven't used the system here as far as house enumeration is concerned. I'm using the Golden Dawn system. So you'll see when we get to the casting cloth that I've got the 4 mothers as the cardinal houses, then the daughters are succedent, and the nieces are then the cadent houses. But anyway, let's not take up too much time with this. Let's move on to your actual reading. So as you can see, I have laid out the cards on the casting cloth as per the conversion sheet. So let's take a look a little bit further. So you'll see that those 4 cards that we initially had are in the cardinal houses. So if we look now at the 3rd house, which is where the moon is, so this is Sagittarius for you, what we find is that we've got Fortuna Major here. Now, astrologically, this is the equivalent to the sun in the house of Leo, or in the sign of Leo. So this is where the sun is really exalted. So it's interesting that we've got the moon here, and the moon in actual fact is considered to be in, I think, detriment in Sagittarius. I don't think it does terribly well in Sagittarius, because it's very big energy, so it tends to cause overreactions. And we are talking about a full moon, and we're talking about an eclipse, so there's definitely the potential here for us to overreact to whatever happens, around this time. But Fortuna Major here is talking about really wonderful kind of gifts that we could be either receiving or imparting to others. And given that this is the 3rd house, which is where the moon rejoices, it's possible that on some level you may be expressing wisdom to others. So maybe you're writing a book, maybe you are giving a talk, maybe you are doing some podcasts, or kind of a live broadcast on YouTube, for example. But on some level, this has the potential to be really expansive and wonderful. So I'm going to read you the main keywords for this particular geomantic figure, so that it can potentially spark off some ideas for you. So Fortuna Major is about great fortune, good luck, chance, power. So this is almost serendipity at work, effortless success, social mobility, winning disposition, victory, inner strength, and natural charisma. So the geomantic symbol for this is a pouch open at the top, able to receive gifts, or a fertile valley with a river flowing out. So it's really interesting that you've got this in the 3rd house with the moon. So it does seem as if on some level the moon could potentially bring some gifts for hard work that has been kind of carried out by you, in the preceding weeks or months. So on some level it's almost as though something is coming good. So in this sense it's similar to the full moon, where things, in the sense of culmination of things kind of coming together, and that may explain why there's this kind of joy and celebration happening in your 10th house. So this could well be either news coming in, or some kind of achievement when it comes to self-expression, teaching, communication, the media, that kind of thing. Then if we have a look at the 9th house, which is where the Sun and Venus will be, so Venus, your ruling planet, we've got Via. Now, interesting that we've got, this is the moon in Cancer, so it's almost like there's some kind of inversion going on. Here we've got the Sun in Leo, which is very solar, but it's the position of the moon, and here we've got a very lunar symbol, but in the position where the Sun will be. So there's a strange sort of inversion going on here, but so the conjuncture, the symbol of the kind of balancing of opposites, may somehow be pertinent. It may be that in order for things to come together, they almost have to become their opposite. So there's something in here about inversion. So changing the way you see things, pivoting, flipping things on their head, so that you see things from a different perspective, and that could bring enormous kind of eureka moments, possibly. Maybe this is what this is about. But Via, as a symbol, is to do with journeys. Now, it's in the 9th house, so it could be a foreign journey. It could be traveling overseas, perhaps for work. That may be why you're smiling. So it could be a literal trip, but it could also be a figurative trip in the sense of a journey within the mind, that you kind of go on a journey and you sort of see things from a completely different perspective as a result of whatever, kind of happens around this time. It could also be kind of literally journeying, so like shamanic journeying, or kind of going on sort of a, out-of-body experiences, traveling to other dimensions. So that's a possibility. I mean, Venus, it's worth bearing in mind that Venus is retrograde during this period, and that Venus will be traveling with the Sun, so that may somehow be significant to whatever transpires around now. It could be, that on some level there's this going back to something that you now realize is of great worth. So it could be knowledge, for example. It could be valuing knowledge or wisdom from, say, a past life, which is this kind of retrograde movement. So there could be some kind of enlightenment or eureka moment kind of happening, a major realization, a kind of breakthrough in terms of, spiritual sort of realizations and wisdom. Yes, lots of interesting developments there. But it's so interesting that we've got Via echoed in your final card, the Judge, which is also Via. So this does really point to trips and to journeys of some kind. And look, it's also reiterated in your 6th house, which is where Mars will be at the time of this particular eclipse. So again, it could be a business trip, or it could simply be a kind of a shift of perspective, for example, a different way of doing work. So that's something to bear in mind. So I'm just going to read you the keywords for Via, because again, this might spark off some ideas for you. So keywords for Via are roads, travel, ways, journeys, flux, directed movement, or a change of direction. So as I say, it could be a change of course. It could be, for example, that your career heads off in a different direction, and this obviously has an impact on your everyday life, who you work with, perhaps, a change of company, so different colleagues, different work environment, different routines. But nonetheless, it seems to be something that brings you enormous happiness. So there's definitely a sense of celebration in the air here, which is wonderful. So if we go to the three final cards, which sort of sum up your reading, we've got Fortuna Minor, which is the sort of sun. It's kind of material gain. Then we've got Fortuna Major. So these are two iterations of the same kind of card. So good fortune, good news, wonderful things, wonderful developments kind of coming your way at this particular full moon lunar eclipse. So Fortuna Minor is fortunate circumstances, external protection, help from others, swift progress, unexpected shifts, and positive changes. So this is associated with this is the lesser fortune. So in a way it represents Venus. If we think about in astrological terms, Venus is considered to be the lesser benefic, Jupiter is considered to be the greater benefic. So you could almost say that this is Venusian energy, so this is your energy. And then we've got Fortuna Major, which we've already covered in the 3rd house. And interestingly, it's again in your 12th house. So again, it does seem to point to shifts of perspective. This is your kind of subconscious mind, your dream kind of scape. This is where our mind meets the collective sort of consciousness. So on some level, there's some enormous shift going on in terms of your perspective. Major realizations. It could also have something to do with connecting with a spirit guide. That could also be why we've got the 7th house kind of emphasis with soul lessons or soul contracts. It could be, that you're connecting with new spirit guides. That's something to bear in mind. We've got it here again, so this could emphasize soul contracts with lovers or with children. So, or possibly creative kind of collaborations of some kind. So that also might be why we've got this emphasis on self-expression, and kind of publishing is another one that's ninth, religious or sort of spiritual activities as well. But just enormously positive reading, Libra. I have to say this is probably the most positive reading so far of all that of the geoscopes that I've done. So definitely you are shifting, you are progressing. This is almost like the Eight of Wands in the tarot deck. There's enormously positive developments happening in your life, major shifts in terms of communication, self-expression, shifts within your consciousness, and celebrations as far as your soul purpose and soul journey and your sense of life direction is concerned. So it looks like a really pivotal but important time for you, where things finally kind of come together, as opposed to releasing things that no longer serve us. So I'll be really interested to hear your feedback as to what does occur. So do leave me some comments in the the box below if you watch this on YouTube. And also I'd love it if you would consider subscribing either to my YouTube channel, or as I say with my website, if you haven't signed up for my newsletter, that will ensure that you get the astrological forecasts that I do for members. So I'm doing individual astrological horoscopes for each of the 12 signs for the eclipses. So if you're interested in that, then do sign up at astrologysphere.com/subscribe. But anyway, I hope that's been helpful, and I'm wishing you all the best, many full moon blessings, and I'll catch you again for the new moon solar eclipse towards the end of June.